Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Sydney Calloway, co-chair of the Detroit Reparations Task Force, and I want to go ahead and call the meeting to order at exactly 2:11. I do want to start with my mandate that y'all know I start all my meetings with, the mandate for Black people by Mary Hooks, which reads, "The mandate for Black people in this time is to avenge the suffering of our ancestors, to earn the respect of future generations, and to be willing to be transformed in the service of the work." I'd also like to take us a moment to just meditate on the journey that it took us to get here and to prepare us for moving forward. So if you could indulge me for a moment. Thank you all so much. Let me do a quick roll call. Member Calloway is present. Member Williams. Member Larsosa. Member Tyus. Member Chike.
Present.
Member Robinson. Member Collins. Member Parker.
Here.
Member Hicks.
Present.
Member House.
Here.
Member Hazel.
Present.
Member Ford.
Here.
And Member Jack.
Hey, everybody.
We have a quorum, fantastic. Okay, so moving, I kind of did that backwards, but that's fine. Were there any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda has been adopted. Moving on to line item 5, any amendments to the minutes from our last meeting? Hearing none, the minutes have been adopted. Line item number 6, our treasurer's report. Member Hazel, are you prepared?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming out. I'm Janice Hazel. I am representing District 7. It's not on. Is it on?
Push the button.
Push the button.
Push it hard.
It's right, the one that's.
It's right in front.
Should be this one here.
Push it hard.
The lights are not.
I don't have one.
There you go.
There, okay.
I don't think that
Got it now?
that was but
Let's try that again. I'm Janice Hazel, and I represent District 7. Thank you for coming out today. As the treasurer, those of you who have been following us and coming out for definitely since December when I was asked to be the treasurer, you know that we've had some challenges getting information. So we are moving forward on that. Our new project manager, Evan Daughtry, has really been laser focused on getting the information, which include, yes, you'll know Evan as our former community liaison, our new project manager. Has been laser focused working with the Office of the Chief Financial Officer and the Office of Contracts and Procurements to get a full listing of the invoices so that we can provide you with a line item report. We do receive a report which goes on our website that has the basics, which is the full number for salaries, fringes, which includes payroll for our staff, and then operating expenses. But to be completely transparent, what I am trying to do, which is why I'm trying to get all of the information, including all of the invoices to date so that we know what we've spent down, to do a full line item treasurer's report. So I do believe that our next meeting will have all of that information that is being sent over to the project manager. But with that said, we are instituting a few new policies, which are spending plans, as well as just more oversight of that function. So thank you for your patience, and we will have that next month. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Member Hazel. So we are moving on to line item number 7. We're going to have a presentation of the summaries of the reports you received. So we got our harms report completed by the University of Michigan, as well as the Columbia University in partnership with the Thurgood Marshall Civil Rights Center out of Howard Law School. So Member Parker and Member Jack, have y'all decided who's going to do what?
We're going to go in the order that's on the agenda.
Oh, fantastic. So first up, we'll do a quick summary of overview of the University of Michigan harms report.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're having a decent day with this Michigan weather here. Never know what to wear in the mornings or what's going to be there in the afternoon, even though today I think is consistently cold. You all should have had a package that has the harm report for Detroit Reparation Task Force from the University of Michigan. That's the one I'm not going to try to go through this document. It's much too long to go in detail, but they did provide us with a summary of it, so I'm going to try to use that summary to at least tell you what some of the takeaways are that's in the bigger document, and hopefully during your time that you'll be able to read through it and see all the details that they have in here. I'm not going to be able to relate all those details, but I do want to reflect some of those in there. I know that after we make our presentation, there'll be an opportunity for you to have greater discussion with the various chairpersons of the task force, and then we can get into more details, and for you to, after you have a chance to review it and have that discussion, let us know some things you think should be included, some things that we may have omitted in it, in both of these studies, because we do recognize we are going to be supplementing this. This is not the total harms document. Now the harms is focused on Detroit. These are the harms that have taken place against African American individuals in Detroit. There's a lot of things that we could talk about: the federal government, the state, the banks and real estate, and everyone else that has some part in actions that were taken against us in building wealth and other things of that nature. But we focus in on Detroit because that was our responsibility to come here and do that. So if you can go to the, number 9, the first 8 pages talks about various people that were involved in it, and I hope that when you read it, you'll see that there's a lot of individuals that were involved in it in University of Michigan, both professors, graduate students, and students that compiled a lot of information, a lot of data, did a lot of research that came up with the total package that I hope you'll be able to read. But here are the 5 focus areas that we have dealt with from the beginning when we first started the task force. The areas of housing, policing, quality of life, education, and economic development and economic insecurity. So those are the 5 focus areas that University of Michigan researched for this harm study. The first one being housing. One more slide, Evan. So some of the key things that takeaways there, we all know about restricting covenants. That was something that was used in Detroit and a lot of other urban areas to restrict black people from moving into better housing in white areas. They actually, as you know, had covenants that a real estate broker could not sell to a black person in an area, and if they did, they would suffer some consequences. And also, just when it did happen later on in the 50s, there was demonstrations and all kind of actions against that. So those did take place in the 20s, 30s, and 40s in particular, but even in the 50s. Redlining was something that the institutions put in place, that they would not give any loans to African Americans that wanted to get a loan to purchase a home in any area of the city, be it Black Bottom, where majority of black people stayed, or be it in another community that maybe did not have a restricted covenant. There was redlining, and when you say redlining, there was actually a map that they drew, and you'll see it in here, that they identified the black communities and that would not be able to get loans. And then there was violent resistance. When somebody did move into a neighborhood, white people came out in large numbers to not only demonstrate, but also to be violent to the people that were there. That was another thing that discouraged some black people that may wanted to move into a neighborhood for better housing, but they did not want to threaten their family for doing that. The other thing was urban renewal, highway construction, large-scale demolition of homes that took place in building not just 375 that we all hear about, but also Chrysler, 75, 94, and also even John Lodge, that they particularly went through black communities and displaced people there. Some of those numbers are in your document. That talk about 43,000 people were displaced as a result of that action that took place there. And another thing that they did not give veterans of the war GI Bill, which was a very common thing that was given to white people that came back from the war. They didn't have to hardly show anything except their discharge papers, and they were automatically getting a loan no matter what their income was. But black people were denied no matter what their income was and how many years they may have served. Personally, my father that served 2 years in the Army, he went to try to get a GI loan, and they just turned him down. No reason, no explanation, and he had a full-time job at that time. But that happened throughout Detroit and a lot of urban areas that stopped people from building wealth. To get a GI loan, my father eventually had to get a land contract that I know he paid a higher interest as a result of that. And fortunately, at the end of that land contract, he acquired the home. But in many cases, people did land contracts, did not record them downtown, and when the person paid for 5, 10 years, they would come and just say they're taking the house back. And that happened to a lot of black families that was very detrimental to them, and the government did nothing about it. When they went and complained and tried to do it, they would say things like, well, you should have made sure that they registered that land contract. It's your fault for not doing it, and all kind of explanations that caused people to have additional type of economic impact to them after they've been paying for so long. The other thing was white flight. We all know about that at certain times, particularly after rebellion in '67, and when Coleman Young got elected, white people fled to the suburbs, and homes were left in disarray. And at that point, many times, real estate brokers would have a black family, walk down the street that did not live there, and then they would go back to the houses and they would say, well, you see these black people have moving in, you better hurry up and sell your house. And they were able to get it for a cheaper rate there to the real estate broker. And then, of course, the white flight took place because people did start to move into the areas. So it was a major area. Now, you know, it wasn't just Detroit that experienced this. In 1947, the Supreme Court actually ruled that neighborhoods could restrict who lived in their neighborhood. So covenants were recognized by the government as a way of keeping people segregated and keeping black people out. The other thing is, after World War II, there was a lot of money that was available for public housing, to build public housing in Detroit and other major cities. And only 3 of those were built in Detroit out of 12 that they received funding for, because one of the requirements the federal government had is that you had to integrate. You had to allow anyone to apply and be able to live there, and the federal government was the one that controlled that. So rather than do that, they just denied having build new housing. They would not build the public housing because they rather have no public housing than have black people live next to them in the public housing. And there was a lot of, and I think that Mama Jack is going to explain some things about what happened in a particular neighborhood when they did build the public housing and demanded that black people would live there. So 6,550 homes were not built, public housing apartments and things were not built as a result of the mayor in many cases and Detroit Housing Commission denying to have those houses built there. So it was something that really set, and that was unique to Detroit in many ways. Many other cities did allow public housing to come in there, and they had all kind of growth in doing that, but Detroit refused to have public housing built, and actually some of the projects, like the Gratiot project, was supposed to be built there, and they went and removed black people from that area from Black Bottom, and then never built the public housing. So, you know, they use all kinds of things of that nature. So housing was a major factor in discrimination for black people, and as we all know, that's the way you build wealth, is by having a house, living in it, and you sell that, you get a better house, and you build your wealth. And that's why the gap between white people and black people is so large today, is because we never had the opportunity. If you can go to policing, and the next area is policing. We all know, if anybody lived in Detroit during the 60s and 70s, we know, 50s and 60s, I should say, we know the police force was just a white force of police officers that, in many ways, attacked black people. The Big Four, stress, and other things were there in order for black people to not be able to do anything freedom. I can't even tell you how many times I was stopped by the police and just taken out in a harass and strip your car and then tell you to get back in the car and don't say a word about it. And you know you couldn't go and complain to anybody because it was an all-white police force. The other thing is, if any crime took place in the black community, police did not respond. And when they responded, they didn't do anything about it. They would just tell somebody, well, you live in this neighborhood, so you should expect to be broken in. Or the crime that's taking place, you know, you should stop your people from doing it. And all kind of negative things that they would say to a person rather than, since taxpayers are paying their salaries, respond to it and do whatever is necessary to stop that from happening, or at least limit it to some degrees. The other thing is that police force did not allow, for the most part, black people to apply, and the few blacks that did go on the police force, they were discriminated against, they were given the worst type of assignments, they were not respected, and I know, I remember reading about white officers would not even ride in a car with a black police officer because they said they didn't want to be that close to someone, and they're the ones out there sort of protecting us. And that lasted until Coleman Young became mayor, and that was one of his major things is to integrate the police department, and he did a fantastic job. I think before he left, it was a 50-50 type of a situation there. The other thing is Detroit had the reputation of the most deadly police force in the country, that over 700 people were killed. 79% of them were black. People were killed in the city of Detroit by police officers. Their policy was not to try to find out what the problem might be, but rather to shoot and then try to find out what the situation was. And we know how many people got killed because of stress, where they actually went out there and tempted young people to take something or to do something, and then would come in not to, police would come in not to just try to capture that person or arrest them, but rather they would shoot them. And that was something that took place in Detroit, and that was kind of unique to Detroit. But as I said, over 700 people were killed as a result of that. Quality of life is another area. During the period of time, very few people had insurance. Only people that could really get insurance are those that worked in the factories there, but most other people did not have insurance in the city of Detroit, and then were not able to get health care. And at one time, we had public hospitals that would take you, but then they became all private, and they had restrictions on if you had insurance or did not have insurance, and we all know what the care they give you differently if you came in there with Medicaid versus having health insurance, and that took place. Also, the environment in Detroit, we know about some of the factories that were here and the poor health that resulted of that. Marathon is still here and still polluting that neighborhood, which has one of the highest degrees of asthma in the country because of that. And anybody that drives through there know what that smell is like, and no way that can't affect people's health. And there was a number of other businesses that were located in the city of Detroit that gave out pollution, even continuing today with the Stellantis plant that is under violation right now because of the pollution they are putting up in the community. So that has continued in our community. And also, there's some idea that 375, although we all want to see it redeveloped because of what the stigma was with that, eliminating black bottom, they say still that demolition of that Highway 375 and the construction is going to cause more environmental harms than it may be worth. But it's something that University of Michigan in particular is looking at and hopefully trying to respond to make sure that the environmental harm is not as great. This is one area we know we're going to be doing more work in focusing in on the quality of life and the poor health that we had in Detroit. The other area is education. We all know that our educational system is not what it should be, or definitely not what we want it to be. It continues, but that's the way it has been throughout its history. We all know about Brown versus the Board of Education that said that all schools had to be integrated, that there could be no segregation, but Michigan got around that by Milligan versus Bradley, where they came in and said neighbors could restrict who came to their neighborhood based on the taxes that are paid in there. So they already had neighborhoods that were all white, so they were able to stop people from coming into their neighborhood because you could only take kids that lived in that particular neighborhood. So that was one way they did it, by requiring you to only go to school in your neighborhood. And then also the disparity in the cost of children. Right now, today, Grosse Pointe, that is one of the richest communities in Michigan, gets $3,000 more per student than Detroit children. And anybody that's on the east side know that you cross out the road and you're in Grosse Pointe. It's all the same area, but yet those children, and they would not allow children from Detroit to go to that school, and a number of the other schools did the same thing. And the graduation rate continues to be poorest one in the state of Michigan. It has been some improvement recently, but it still is much lower than it is in the whole state. The other area that we recognize in University of Michigan is public transportation. Many cities, children ride the buses free. They do not have to pay for public transportation. We in Detroit use our funds, had to pay for transportation for buses. Children could not just go on and get on the bus. And that's one of the reasons why the chronic absenteeism is so high in our Detroit schools, which is one of the major reasons. As much as 2/3 of Detroit students are considered chronically absent. I want to say that again, 2/3 of our children, 66% of our children are considered chronically absent. And a lot of times it's not their fault. Sometimes they missed the bus that was going to pick them up. Sometimes they don't have the bus fare to pay. Sometimes the parents did not respond because they're working 2 jobs and may have not been able to prepare them to go to school. All kind of reasons there, but the results are a chronic absenteeism that results in poor educational levels. The other thing we all know about the emergency manager that came in here, we had a surplus of over, I think it was $150 million when they came in, and when they left, we had a deficit of $50 million because they began to cut the budget, close schools, did everything they could to discourage the growth of the continued growth of Detroit public schools. And that continues today, and it still is something that we hope through our reparations that we will be able to address that. Graduation rates, as I said, we have, trying to look at these numbers, but I guess I'll put my glasses on here. All students in the state of Michigan, the dropout rate is 8.1. I only got 60 seconds. In Detroit, the rate is closer to 13% of children that drop out of school. Economic development, which is a very important area. We know, as I mentioned, the highways that came in not only took away residents, but also destroyed the businesses. Number of Paradise Valley and other places had that. And one other thing on economic development in regards to jobs that I didn't realize I read this report, Detroit only spends $69 per person on transit. Atlanta spends $119 for every person. Seattle pays $471. We're the lowest in the country that we spend on transportation, and we all know the difficulties of trying to do anything using public transportation. You never know if it's going to show up or not, and then when you get let off at a particular location, you don't know when you might get back on the bus. So those are the 5 areas that we focus in. The report here that you have, much more details, a lot of information in here than I went on today. Hopefully you have a chance to review that, and also when we break into groups, hopefully you'll be able to get more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Parker. Member Jack.
Thank you very much, Chair. The next piece that we're looking at is the Addressing Racial Inequalities in America, a United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Audit of U.S. Black Communities. It was a capstone course for Howard University and Columbia University with students from Howard University and at Columbia University themselves. They partnered together along with a number of individuals here within the city of Detroit, not only individuals but entities, and they began their work through creating a ethno-history. Their methodologies, well, let me go back a little bit. I just want to, when you look at this document, you'll see in the table of contents that they list a number of figures and images, and they also list the partners that they spoke with in terms of their research. Their research wasn't only in terms of academic writings that were already created prior to the beginning of this study, but they came to Detroit, they met with people, they met with organizations, and they also pulled the studies and papers and public information that have been used to study information like population, demographic type of demographic knowledge. This is the information that they studied and pulled from to create what is called an ethno-history. And that ethno-history was an opportunity to really just have an appreciation for where members of the city of Detroit, where Black citizens of the city of Detroit, where they stood just in terms of just telling that story, who they were, what they survived, what they were dealing with. And they looked at economic inequality. And when they looked at economic inequality, one of the things that they did is they immediately discovered that, as you see on, let's see, is it page 7 of that document, they went back before the great immigration here to Detroit. They spoke about the fact that the influx of population of Black people in the city of Detroit impacted how a lot of the rules and the policies and the systems within the city of Detroit began to be active against those members of the community. They spoke about it grew from 1.2% in the city of Detroit to 16%, and they were lured here, of course, as a result of the opportunities to work. Many of the people who were living in the South, of course, many of them were sharecroppers or had no work or very poor working conditions where they were barely able to survive in their homes. And when they heard about opportunities at places in Chicago, of course, in the factories there, in places, of course, here like the city of Detroit, the big 3, the different industries that would be open to bringing people from the South to Detroit, these opportunities of getting a working or at least an opportunity for a living wage, may not be truly living wage, but just an opportunity to make some money, lured them here. And so this is what increased the population from just over 1% to over 15% within the city of Detroit. And that is what impacted a lot of the policies that began to move against members of the city of Detroit in the black community, as Member Parker already mentioned in terms of housing. The housing circumstances were very, very negative and very, very hard for people. They were relegated to very poor communities, and where they were, it was overcrowded, and when they were able to pay rent, the rent was significantly more expensive for black people than for white people. They were forced to live in environments and conditions that were not cared for. There was either no investment or disinvestment happening in the community. So even though there were more people coming in to pay these higher rates of rent, they were in poorer and poorer environments as the years and decades moved on, to the point that Member Parker mentioned, even when people could find an opportunity to attempt to purchase a home, the results of systems of redlining it was okayed by the FHA. It wasn't a policy of the FHA. It was policies of the lenders and of the banks who would determine communities that were redlined, and they would give these poor grades to communities where people of African descent were beginning to infiltrate, to move and live or purchase properties. They began to redline these areas and would not provide loans or any types of funds or infrastructure for investment to happen in those communities. And so as a result, disinvestment or no investment or underinvestment was what was going on, to the point that I mentioned in terms of the higher rate of wage in terms of rent. In 1960, for example, there was a $12 difference in the median monthly rent paid by black and white Detroiters, with black renters paying $76 per month, whereas white renters paid 64 cents. And that has not changed since the 1960s, where people who are able to afford rent, if you are able to afford rent, and many of you, if you're a renter in Detroit, if you are looking for a place to afford housing, it's harder and harder to afford a place that is safe, that is in the community. And so this is something that has been exacerbated and has continued since the 60s. In 1941, real estate developers developed racially divided the 8 Mile, Wyoming neighborhood with a 6-foot-high, 4-inch thick, half-mile-long concrete wall to evade red zone designation in the 1939 Homeowners Loan Corporation security maps and to secure financing. We know that as the Burwood Wall, but that was put in place to divide the area so that black homeowners who were on the south side of 8 Mile, who did have property, would not be aligned with the people who were just across 8 Mile on the other side of the road. So that literally created a division, a physical barrier, so that redlining could happen just across the street. So these are the systems that were put in place and maintained, not only in the 40s and 50s, but since the teens and all the way up here we now are in 2020s. We understand that those types of behaviors are still ongoing. And they give many examples. There are many references there. They refer to a number of not only documentation from books and from scholars, but they also interviewed individuals who are working in the community and organizations that have boots on the ground, as it were, entrenched in the community, working against the systems that people of African descent are being forced to suffer through. Baba Bernard mentioned, referenced the Sojourner Truth Homes, the fact that there was one of the few places that were created early on in terms of public housing for people of African descent. When they were supposed to move in 1942, over 1,000 white folks stopped these 28 families, these 28 black families, from attempting to move in. Over 1,000 people showed up to prevent 24 families from moving into their rightful home. And this is the behavior that was a system, this was a process. There were organizations, neighborhood organizations, civic organizations, entities that were developed specifically within neighborhoods to enforce, create, and determine these racial covenants to maintain the integrity of the neighborhood. This was a policy, whether it was written in the organizations or these were circumstances that were determined by the bankers and the lenders, as well as the FHA. Every system connected to housing was involved in keeping people of African descent from having access. And even those who would eventually be able to maintain or establish home ownership, many of them lost their homes, particularly during the housing crises of the early 2000s. So where they were able to maintain housing up until the 2000s, the few families who still had some, many of them were forced to lose their house because the taxes were too high, or because the water bill was attached to their housing, or there were so many systems that were put in place to, again, strip them of their ownership. And we know that, as was mentioned, home ownership was where much of the wealth of the family was invested for people of African descent. And so as a result, unfortunately, when they lost their homes, they therefore lost this generational wealth that many families who are not Black are able to pass on from generation to generation. There is a lot of detail as it relates to the housing. They go on to speak about food insecurity, one of the systems within the community, and it points to the quality of life of people of African descent. And of course, many people know that the grocery stores in the city of Detroit were often owned, in many cases, only by white people, or mostly by white people in the early 1900s, and that has maintained the case throughout 2000. And thankfully now we have 2 Black-owned stores in the city of Detroit, but this is a rarity rather than the commonality in a Black city. Most of the stores who were owned by white folks would gouge the prices, would not hire people of African descent to work there. So even though you lived in the neighborhood and had to shop in this place, you couldn't work in this place to earn money for your family in the store that you were shopping at. And eventually, and I know in my own life, the rise of the Spartan stores and lower quality of food. And then even though you might have a Spartan store in your neighborhood, you couldn't depend upon the quality of the products that were there, nor could you depend on the products being on the shelves when you arrived to purchase. And if they were there, you would often have to pay $2 or $3, sometimes $4 more per product, per item, than if you were at a store that was in a suburban community. And so many people, they speak to the fact that many people within the city of Detroit, if you have the access or the opportunity, refuse to shop within the city of Detroit. They find themselves forced to shop in the suburban communities around, in the more larger stores, the national stores. And they go on to speak about, it says here, for Black Detroiters, the procurement of food and income was intertwined with systemic racism and holistic exclusion. While the '67 uprising brought these issues to the fore, the parallel violence of industrial transformation and environmental degradation further compounded community devastation. So the disinvestment or the underinvestment in the communities in terms of housing, but also in businesses, as of course it relates to the food industry, is one of the aspects of impact, negative impact towards people of African descent. Baba, Member Parker also mentioned about the pollution in the city of Detroit. The citizens, the policymakers, and the people who essentially run the city of Detroit have made it their policy to defer to the businesses and corporations over the people. So anytime there was an opportunity to gain through business, if it were to harm people in the community, they did not mind that, and they seemingly made certain that the people who were harmed were people of African descent. The poorest people in the communities, those who had no options of finding places to live, those communities were where the factories or where the industrial locations or where these very harmful, potentially pollutant or negative impacting businesses would be. We have example after example after example, even still now, as was mentioned by Member Parker, in terms of downriver with Marathon Oil, but not only in the area over there, we also, of course, have the incinerator that was recently closed, but still we're having negative health aspects impacting people in the community and on the area near Chrysler Freeway near Warren Avenue, the incinerator that was there, that was one of the highest asthma communities in the state of Michigan. So anytime that they were able to benefit in terms of corporation or business, the businesses and corporations were given tax shelters, tax benefits, they were given all kinds of opportunities, rollovers from the community, but the people who lived in those communities who were either promised jobs, they were never brought through, who were given promises that they would not have negative impacts in terms of particulates in the air or in their water or in their land, were lied to again and again. There were even instances where the state of Michigan didn't even test for certain pollutants or chemicals, and we're still making promises that, oh, these would not be things that would impact you. How do you know that if y'all don't test it? But they were still allowing these organizations and these entities to come in and use these systems and these processes that will pollute and damage and harm the communities. The increasing levels of cancer, the increasing levels of negative health, asthma, many different types of health negative impacts have been noted over and over again, not only in the more recent decades, but since the early 1900s. Pollution in the city of Detroit, in the waters, in the air, and in the land have been an issue for a century. It says here, the city of Detroit's protection of commercial and industrial interests communicated that people were subordinate to profits and economic growth. Alongside rampant pollution, companies dehumanized and belittled Black Detroiters by intentionally employing them in work that shortened and threatened their lives. For elites, the disposability and destruction of Black communities extended from the environment to education. And they began to speak about the educational system, spoken to already by Member Parker, how it was disinvested, where people were relegated to certain schools in certain communities, and even though these schools were overcrowded and very hard to deal with in terms of impact for members in the Black community, there would be schools just a few blocks away where you could go to school. You would not be allowed to go to those schools if you were of African descent. You would be sent to another quote-unquote Black school, which still was overcrowded, still had lower levels of sources of supplies, as well as even the teachers. At one point, the teacher, the director of the Department of Education proudly spoke about the fact that only Black teachers would teach in Black communities because I sent them there. That was a quote. So it was clear and specific, the underinvestment, the disinvestment, and the disillusionment of people of African descent. There was no intention to improve their lives through education, through the living conditions, or through the opportunities of finding food or work in their communities. It says here, dispossession and disempowerment have robbed Black students as a right to fully and freely receive culturally relevant education and to direct their lives. As explained, the elimination of democratic self-determination by those in power has also been a routine and discriminatory practice. When there was a Board of Education directing the students in the school, they were taken out of power. They were not given an opportunity to control. Thank you. Oh my gosh. So as we move forward, they speak on and on. There's so much knowledge here. I really encourage you to get into this because there's a lot to digest. There's a lot to understand and discover. They speak to the United Nations has these sustainability goals. The city of Detroit fails utterly in every category. I could go on, and from zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, the clean water, gender equality, just every single category that they outlined in this document, the city of Detroit fails. And they then began to speak about reparative policymaking, and I wanted to just take the last 30 seconds or so to speak to what they refer to here. If I could find it real quick, it's on page, I think, 64. Yes. So it begins partnerships to achieve the goal. They do have some positive aspects. The City of Detroit has done some things. There are some small efforts that have been in place in terms of sustainability. For example, green infrastructure in different places, but it hasn't made it into the deepest parts of the community. We have these LED lights in certain communities, but in other communities, they haven't made it because they don't have the places to put the infrastructure in place. It's too expensive, or they don't want to pay the cost to put these infrastructures in place. So there are some improvements, but they still need to do more. Part of what they say is they speak to food insecurity. They say secure the City of Detroit support for the existing localization of the food system. They're saying make it local. We can grow food here, we can sell food here, we do not have to go outside of our community. In terms of pollution, they have specific charges for the water department and for the entities, the businesses that pollute our communities. They have specific ideas and suggestions as to what we can do to help ameliorate the problems that they have been causing. In terms of education, they say start targeted literacy interventions early, focusing on minority and economically disadvantaged students. Of course, that starts with preschool, considering preschool, but not only just preschool, but culturally valuable preschool. Education that's going to build up a person of African descent. When I was in school, we didn't get Black history the way that I could have, the way I should have. Happily, I had a school that I could offer my children, but unfortunately, Inter-Roma Institute doesn't exist anymore. Or schools of African descent, larger schools. There are a few still in the City of Detroit, and we speak to that here, but we need more. We need more, and we need to drill down deeper and really understand that it starts at birth with these children of how we can educate them and give them an opportunity to move forward. In terms of housing, they say invest in historically red-line communities. Illegal taxation, they speak to the overtaxation of people in the City of Detroit. They have a whole section on that. Please read that and digest that. It's deep and powerful and saddening and enraging at the same time. I encourage you to read where they speak about the Detroit Land Bank Authority. They say overhaul it. It needs to be overhauled and reconsidered the way it is done. The land banks in other cities have done good things to support and benefit the communities that they serve. But here in the City of Detroit, we seemingly have an adversary in terms of our land banks, so that there's some overhaul that needs to be done. And they also speak to the CBO, the Community Business Organization, I think that's what it's called. Thank you, thank you, Baba Jaman, the Community Benefits Organization, that there needs to be overhauled and reconsider the structure of that to help, again, benefit members of the community of the City of Detroit. They say that the state of Michigan, the City of Detroit, and the federal government has responsibility. The UN speaks to the state having the responsibility of making their citizens be safe, have an opportunity to thrive, and that they failed. And we need to find ways to encourage them to turn that around. And they have a conclusion here that speaks to that. I just wanted to make sure that everybody realizes that this information is available to us all. It's not only in these documents, but there are the books that are mentioned here. There are the reports that are mentioned here, and the organizations and individuals and entities that are doing the work that have been mentioned here are here in Detroit. We can do what we can to help pour into our own communities and into our own citizenship, into ourselves. And so this is one of the things that I really felt very excited about when I read this. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. All right, thank you so much, Member Jack and Member Parker, for those summaries. So y'all know our new favorite thing to do are these breakout sessions. We love having these roundtables, and we love being able to talk about the repair for our community face to face. So I'm gonna take about 3 minutes to allow our subcommittee chairs to go into the other room and select their tables. We are going to have conversations focused on these reports based on the topics. Now, I know that all of these topics are very important to everybody, but we really want to start thinking about repair per topic. So if there's one topic that stands out to you, one topic you have expertise in, one topic that you are super interested in, please go sit at that table, get involved in that conversation, contribute as much as you can, so we can really start formulating these demands to our city, right? The things that we deserve. So if y'all can go ahead and start to slide and transition, I want to take a few minutes to do this as efficiently as possible.
And don't forget, we'll come back here.
Yes, and then about 3:40, 3:45, we're going to come back in here so we can have some time for public comment, and we can give our announcement about our surveys. Thanks, y'all.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I might.
Member Hazel.
Hi, yes, those who are interested in quality life, like Member Jack so eloquently just went over, please stay in this room. I'm the chair, and we'll meet in this room. Just gather in the front. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You can go to others, but it gets very loud in there together, so.
Yes, that's an excellent point. Thank you, Member Hazel. So please keep your voices to a considerate volume. Oh, there was a question?
Madam Chair, I just want to be clear about what that request was.
I'm sorry.
She was asking if we could all
Could you
be in
repeat
one
your
room.
question?
We have a collective discussion, like we've done before, so that our voices aren't lost across these different,
So, yeah, it does make a lot of sense, but we did not set up this room for that particularly today. So perhaps our next public session will be more focused on that. Not more focused, but, yes. Yeah, there were some other comments? Yes. Fantastic. Right. So for those of you who have already consumed the report and do have questions, we really appreciate if you would email those to us. Today's setup is just particularly for the breakout session for those who haven't seen the report. So we may not have time, so we do have public comment where perhaps we can address a couple of questions depending on the time, but I really do want to make sure that we are considerate of everybody's time and the time we do have in the space, but I'm here for all the questions. So I appreciate you getting that report early. So if we could, really quickly, I will take that into consideration for our next public meeting, that we do have that facilitated conversation like we have once before. So write them questions down and bring it to the next one, but for today, let's stay focused on the small tables for now, just more candid, intimate conversations, and then depending on the time, we may be able to have some questions answered in public comment. Yes, ma'am.
thank you so much for acknowledging me again.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to point out that when you break out, it leaves those who are online out. So they're not able to contribute also.
Yes.
If you could please, just modify, and understand that you had it set up a certain way.
Yes, ma'am.
But if you could please take our considerations into account, I don't know, maybe deliberate for a minute, just so that we're all able to come together, especially those who are not able to make it. Like, I know I have some people who are sick and shut in.
Yes.
Who are online.
Absolutely. So again, that would have to be a consideration for our next meeting because today we just don't have, we didn't have it set up for that. So I do apologize for missing that because that's an excellent point for accessibility.
Madam Chairwoman, if I might.
I'm just trying to be considerate of the time. Okay. Member Hazel, I heard you.
Right, yes, in keeping with what some of our public is stating, I think we should stay in this room because people on Zoom will not be able to see and/or comment. So I think we really should stay in this room. I think we can be flexible and agile to hear everyone's voices. And if these whiteboards, I'm not sure if anyone from the facility is here, but I think those are erasable. So perhaps we could put some notes up there, certainly a scribe, so that we can have those in our minutes for the next meeting. I would like to move, Madam Parliamentarian, am I okay? Okay. I move that the former breakout sessions be combined into the main room for the 40 minutes that we had designated.
Second.
Madam Chair, just to let you know, after the agenda has been approved, this vote needs a 2/3 vote.
All right. So we do have a motion on the floor to combine our outbreaks into one room facilitated conversation. I will have to take a roll call vote since now that this will
Just
be
on
amending the
discussion
agenda.
on it, if I could. The reason why we wanted to break into groups that we have tried before is it gives dialogue. You make comments, someone can comment back, you go back and forth. When you're in a large group like this, it's very difficult to focus in on anything and really go in depth into that. you end up with someone making a 3, 4, 5-minute statement or whatever they want to do, and then you go to somebody else, and you don't really resolve that. So that was a hope that we would be able to, in a smaller group, you could really focus on policing, and you could talk about that in detail back and forth. So that was we did it before, and it was a much better opportunity to learn from people what they wanted to do. I'm not opposed that we decide to do it here, but we need to be conscious of this is not the public comment time. It's a time that we're going to talk about specifically what's in these reports and make a comment, and hopefully there's opportunity for people to go back and forth on it, and not just you have a comment and then you move to somebody else for another comment.
Thank you, Member Parker. Member Larsosa, and then Member Chica, you're on staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a contribution to to the discussion, can I poll the room to gauge interest on who wants to have a general conversation? Maybe by a show of hands?
Excuse me, Mr. Larsosa, this is the task force. This is the task force vote, discussion. This is improper, what you're doing.
Okay, so what I would say, Madam Chair, is I think that as a part of this discussion on the motion, I think we would make a better informed decision if we had a better idea about what the community wants to do.
That's a separate motion. That's a separate
It's not a motion, it's a piece of the conversation.
Okay. Member Larsosa, was that your time?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
Member Chica and then Member Hazel. Member Chica.
Well, I just wanted to reiterate, along with what Member Parker said, part of the focus of these groups was to glean information from you all, so that if we try to do all of that in one big group, I could see it being problematic. So we're trying to glean information and suggest that if you have a preferred interest, you go to that topic, and if we need to do this again, we can do that, but there has to be some structure.
Give me one moment. Give me one moment.
No, this is task force.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So this is.
We gonna vote?
So we're in the middle. Thank you. So we're in the middle of a discussion right now, and this is just a motion that the task force is going to handle. So if you could please hold your comments. Member Hazel, we actually did, and we're changing it right now. So Member Hazel, if you could.
Hi, yes. In furtherance of the motion that I put forth, we do have subcommittees. Quality of Life meets the second Thursday of each month, so 5:30 to 6:30 on Zoom. So I think we can accommodate that, and we certainly have been having some very good discussions and information exchange with the Quality of Life and the housing subcommittees that I participate in. So I really think we should listen to the public. This is their report that's going to go to council, and we need to have their input. Thank you.
I call the question.
Call the question. All right, so we just have a call to question that would end the discussion. The motion on the floor right now is to combine our outbreaks into one large group facilitated conversation. I'm going to need a 2/3 vote, so I'm going to take a roll call vote. Member Larsosa.
Aye.
Member Chique.
No.
Member Parker.
No.
Member House.
Yes.
Member Hicks.
Yes.
Member Hazel.
Yes.
Member Ford.
Yes.
Member Jack.
Yes.
All right, the yeas have it. We will go ahead and proceed with a large group facilitated conversation. Thank you all so much. Yes, now be mindful, y'all. 3:40, that's all we got, because we still need to do public comment. So I am going to ask that you please be conscious of and considerate with your comments, with your commentary, okay?
Chair.
Yes, Member Jack.
If we have 30 minutes, so from now until 3:40 is 30 minutes. Is it the case that we might be able to divide maybe 5 or so minutes per,
Topic?
yeah?
Yeah? Okay.
Okay.
All right, so
And our brother here, Evan, has the mic, so we really want to stay succinct in our conversation.
yes, please. So we are, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Our time.
Okay.
Let's say seconds.
30 seconds.
So that it's more of a
A
conversation.
30-second comment, 30-second comments, family, is that okay? Can we all agree to that?
Yeah, because we do have quite a few people in the room, and we want to
Yes.
make sure we hear from everybody. So 30 seconds, please.
And we'll incorporate the people who are on Zoom, we must not forget.
Yes. Yes. Are we prepared to also include members from Zoom? Fantastic. So with that being said, thank y'all so much for y'all patience with us. Thank y'all so much for your input. Hey, Baba. Yes, so let's decide on the first topic. Do y'all want to start with housing? So y'all want to talk about housing? And mind you, we are going to try our hardest to focus on repairs. I know we talk a lot about harms. We've experienced a lot of harms. We don't want to relive that trauma. Today, we are focused on repairs. What are our demands when it comes to housing? If you could form a line in the center, that would be fantastic, just to expedite the process. Baba Gibson, I see you.
We're holding ourselves according to time, though. We're going to do our due diligence to hold ourselves according to time. I would suggest that the focus areas are in this order: housing, policing, quality of life, education, and then economic development and security. So according to how it was listed for the U of M, is that okay, Madam Chair?
Yeah, so actually, I just got a really good recommendation to just scrap the topics and just let it flow.
Okay, and
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yeah, so if you could, once again, form a line in the center.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
this is Member
Yes,
Larsosa
Member
speaking.
Larsosa.
This is meant to be a discussion. If we had gone out in the hallway, it would have been less formal than people lining up. In the interest of time, I suggest that we just let people stay where they are and let the microphone fly. And I can offer myself up to help facilitate this, to help it move along, if that would be helpful.
Thank you, it would be.
All right, so.
All right.
A couple housekeeping items, I think, as I take over from here. Madam Chair, is that okay?
Please.
Is that mic on? Is that a projection mic, or is it just a recording mic?
Will be.
It's a live mic.
What's the function of that mic, to record or to project sound? Okay.
Do we have a whiteboard marker? Thank you. Okay, okay.
Test. Okay, Evan, help me run around and move the mic to people. Couple housekeeping items, y'all. We're going to keep our comments constructive. That's the first one. Agreed?
Yes.
So we're trying to add 2 solutions. Second is we'll address ideas and not people. What that means is if there's something you don't agree with or something you want to add to, we'll talk about the idea and not attack the person who offered an idea. Is that okay? As we're talking about ideas, the rule of thumb should be yes and, which means that there'll be some things that you struggle with, and as opposed to approaching it with a no but, yes and. I think that this would be a lot better if we approached it this way. Is that okay? That's okay, Ru? Okay, and then the fourth thing is just be respectful and thoughtful about time, because we have limited opportunity to speak. So try to keep your comment to 20 or 30 seconds. Have it well thought out before you take the mic. Is that okay?
Let's go.
Thumbs up if you agree.
3:13.
Anything I forgot? All right, what's the first topic?
So we're going to skip the
gonna-
topics altogether as it comes, as it flows, whatever your
Okay.
comments are.
Whatever topic.
Make sure that we are focusing on repair and demand.
Okay, initial reactions. State your name, please.
My name is Kimberly Canty, and my solutions for housing are, one, that we stop the low-income housing tax credits where there are 80-20, where only 20% of the housing goes to the low-income and Detroit residents. All 100% should go to low-income and Detroit residents, because it's 100% funding by Detroit taxpayer dollars. We should not be funding temporary housing. We should be funding permanent housing. We just spent $30 million on temporary housing for 30 units. That's $1 million a unit. That is ridiculous, and that money should be stopped and refunded back to the city to develop permanent housing for our homeless and veterans.
Thank you, Kimberly. Hands up. Madam Chair, will you help me keep stack? I can't see everybody who has their hands up, or the body at large. If you somebody, just
I
let
can
me
help
know.
keep stack
Okay.
if the body will
Over
help
here and
keep
then over here.
notes
Yep.
and time.
I got time.
Notes and time, thank you.
Don't forget to tell Slimmy, okay?
Okay. I want to make sure that the demand is put forth that the city of Detroit refund totally refund the $600 million back to property owners, and to also return homes or the equivalent of the 100,000 homes that were illegally foreclosed. People do not have the money for rent now. So what is happening, they're displacing all these people. So I'd like to make a demand that the task force approach that and find a way to demand the city council in one unified voice to repair them, the homeowners and taxpayers, $600 million and 100,000 homes.
Thank you. What's your name?
Tahira Ahmed.
Thank you, Tahir. Over here and then over here.
Yep.
I'm gonna get my steps in today.
Dewan Odom. I would like to say that we shouldn't refer to ourselves as descendants of Africa. I appreciate that. We have the genetics in us. But Elon Musk is a descendant or a African American. And when we refer to ourselves as descendants of Africa, that connects us to Africa, allowing Africans to jump in on our reparations claim. I respect the African DNA that we have, but we are a whole new ethnic group in this country. There was no America until our lineage, our descendants, foundational Black Americans built this country. So to refer to us as descendants of, everybody comes from Africa. So, you know, we are our own ethnic group. Thank you.
Thank you, Dewan.
Thank you. Anita Bell, Reparations Labor Union. Very quickly, since you have a study on the United Nations, which might be the way you have to go, which might involve Africa, which might mean we need some allies, that means we should also look at framing Detroit reparations based upon the Genocide Treaty from the United Nations. And that genocide didn't stop at slavery. It continued to everybody that has our degree of melanin, and that includes Africans.
Okay, so I just want to kind of piggyback off of our brother in the back. It is chalkboard cringing when you refer to Black Americans as Africans and African descent, because that's not it. That's not all that is here. We are from this soil. We are Black Indians. We are all of the alike, but we are not solely African. So when you say African descent, you're including everybody. When you're talking about the UN and their plans, you're talking about things that were put in place or agreed upon in 1947, well before we fought and were granted civil rights, right? We fought for those. They weren't given to us. That is something that we have done, and we have always fought by ourselves. We did not need anyone else's help, okay? No, we did not. Please stop, Anita. Stop it. Not trying, and then stop with the language in the reports. It needs to be more specific. It says minority. It says Afro descent. It says all of these things. It needs to be very specific on who we're talking about. And we can do that by saying lineage. Lineage-based, lineage-based, lineage-based. And these things, as far as I'm concerned, are criminal. We should be filing lawsuits against the city of Detroit, Mayor Dugan, and all the alike. Even Mary Sheffield and the city council, they have to vote on these things. You guys got to look at where the money is going. They're already getting it. And I'll be darned if anybody stands on the shoulders of my ancestors to break bread. And we're dealing with a whole new set of problems now, okay? We have illegal immigrants that are coming into this country, and they get a warm, carpeted welcome with money in their pockets. And I'll be darned. We need the money. Get the money, Black Americans, and wake up.
You have a question over here, but lineage of who, to be clear?
The lineage is Black American. Before 65, who was here? When you're reading this report, they're talking about Black people, Black Americans, those that have been reclassified over and over again. My birth certificate says I am Black. Black, okay? I'm not African American. No, my grandmother's not African American. No, she's colored Negro. We are the same lineage. Stand on business, Black Americans.
Okay.
That was the question you had, too? Okay, all right, over here. I got over here, then I got Lacey, and then I got you, Baba Gibson. You had a clarifying question?
He's asking for her name.
What's your name, sis?
My name is Portia Edwards, and I represent the Detroit Grassroots Coalition. We will help you trace your lineage.
Well, I was basically about to say the same thing. Y'all got Terrence Ely. we got to change the verbiage on these laws because, and this paperwork, because you got to take the minority out, because that's going to allow an immigrant from another country to come in. You got to take the African American out, because that's going to allow an African who just got here yesterday to get our money. You know what I'm saying? So it has to be lineage based. You know what I'm saying? It has to be. You can't include everybody. This is not for Africa. This is not for Venezuela. This is not for Mexico. This is not for none of these people. And I got nothing against them people, but I'd rather see my kids beat them. You know, this is a game. It's called a race. We trying to race to the end. You know what I'm saying? We already got these white folks, you know what I'm saying? They moving back here. You know, just so happen folks own businesses here, but we're dealing with multi-billionaires. And they could actually raise the tax property up and basically squeeze us out. Just by add another 20% on them taxes. We're done. So we need to focus on the tax breaks. We need to focus, since they said we're not getting cash reparations,
1 minute.
cash payments, we need to focus on something that's going to specifically benefit black folks who've been here since the 1600s, and specifically the black folks who've been here, living through all the racism, all the terrorist attacks. And
1 minute, 15.
I just want to say one thing: y'all wouldn't be here if them black folks wouldn't have stood up and burnt this city down in 1967.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for the thoughts, brother. I'm going to Lacey first, and then I got you, then I'll come to you, okay, brother? All right.
Hi, thank you. Lacey Dawson here. I just wanted to point out, did some research recently that really hurts my heart, that 43%, more than 43%, I should say, of black kids to live in the city of Detroit live in poverty. That should sound the alarm for all of us that what we need to do is immediate and it's serious. It's not personal, it's immediate and serious. More than 43% of our children live in poverty, and that's according to the University of Michigan Poverty Solutions. That's not Lacey. So something that I've been trying to do is to look for best practices across the country of where black people are really getting some things done. And one example that I came across is in Chicago, south side of Chicago, they were able to pass the Woodlawn Housing Preservation Ordinance that staves off gentrification and puts policies in place for low-income housing for black people in that area. I would suggest, well, I'll continue to do it myself, but to study the best practices. It may not be a large-scale best practice, but if it's working, maybe there's some things we can identify within those structures that we can ask for or demand happen here in the city of Detroit when it comes to economic
20.
workforce and community development.
What was the study in Chicago?
It's, the ordinance is called the Woodlawn Housing Preservation Ordinance. A lot of the projects go by Woodlawn. They have a $900 million project for south side of Chicago that they're getting financed for black people.
Okay, so that's Woodlawn for the record.
Hello. I don't want us to get hung up or really digress into when we look at, our lineage or, our origin. I think that we can clearly, determine that. I mean, we know exactly in terms of history who was here in 1619. We know where the boats came from, what part of Africa. If we look at Elon Musk, we know that he comes from a part of Europe and went into Africa. So I think we can determine where we come from in terms of the African descent. So I'm not prepared to get, hung up on that discussion. I would like to see us also look at in terms of authorities. I think that what we have to look at now, there's that what they're doing is using other systems to get control. So as we had, black folks did gain political power here in the city of Detroit, there was an effort and has been an effort ongoing to find ways to unsettle that. And one ways within the city of Detroit is having these authorities,
1 minute.
To have, regional control. We need to make sure that we can maintain these systems within the city of Detroit and restore those powers to the residents of the city of Detroit. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm coming to you. How piece of housekeeping, how you coming on notes, brother? You need some additional reporters, or you keeping up? You good? All right.
Good afternoon.
They're going to have to make a copy of it, Baba. Who has the mic? Please.
Okay, good afternoon. Will there be time for us to talk specifically about tailoring the reports? It sounds like we need maybe some additional sections. I noticed that neither of the reports align neatly with the Reparation Task Force committees, which also does not align with the legislative language. So if there's any way to kind of drill down, make subheadings, or to tailor it specifically to those things so that we can make sure we get what we need. And also, I think that a lot of the things that we need going forward were actually in the charter amendments that didn't pass. So we would look for ordinance and laws to carry forward to get reparations and corrective measures. We can look to those already as a body of laws that came from community that are set. Additionally, to lift what Mama Cecily said, when we look at the dismantling of Detroit, especially for the last 20 years, we know the historical studies, no more studies need to happen, but we need to look at what we had at the peak of Detroit when they started raiding the coffers to reestablish those things. And then finally, in the report, I think one thing that's missing is two things. The spatialized racism by Dr. Peter Hammer, which is specific and a little bit different and nuanced than the redlining. It's when that is specifically targeted and tailored to a specific group of people. So the spatialized racism, and then also the psychosocial effects of water shutoff by Dr. Nadia Gaber, which shows that what happens to people when you put them under distress and harm. This is specific to water affordability and water shutoffs, but it shows you how other people are harmed with poverty and those things that happen from securing basic needs. Thank you for my time.
And your name?
Yes, really quickly.
Norel Hemphill.
Really quickly. Thank you so much for that. Just to reiterate or just to reconfirm that these are not our official reports. These are supposed to be used as sources. So the notes that you had from me, I'll probably come and get them from you directly because I think they're spectacular notes. But y'all, these are reports that are just going to help us formulate our actual report going to City Council, which is why we need more feedback from you after you consume them, because like you spotted things that were missing, I probably would not have spotted or even imagined to add them in there. So thank you so much for that.
I thought I heard you say the concern was not a consistency across like the formatting and titling and stuff like that? Okay,
Yep.
all right. So coming over here.
Yes, my name is James Chandler, civil rights activist and educator. I brought up before that I have a petition, Civil Rights Comprehensive Petition 2024-202, trying to get it on the ballot. My concern was policy of being above law. You know, that's the main thing. We have Chevron deference, what happened with that doctrine set in place. That helps. I wanted to mention two things in my petition that I'm fighting for is reparations and to implement legal teeth and lawful consequences through we the people outside the judicial system and the government, having our own legal teeth as a community like we have now. And you mentioned policing. There was the police, the Big Four. That was the name of the police that was attacking back in 1940. Yeah, so. And I have limited copies of the petition. So thank you.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about the legal teeth. Maybe you can just add notes to the notes that he's already written so that we can make sure we capture what you're thinking.
Member Larsosa, you have one this way, Member Chike, and then you got the rest of them.
Actually, I got, so it's,
Okay,
all right,
never
so
mind.
I got you, and then you, and then you, and then who else after that? And then I got Bobby Gibson after that, and then it's you? All right, I'm gonna say these again so y'all can help me keep track, because
Okay,
it's
can you
it's
stick
adding
your
up.
hands up in the sky?
So first, I'm going over to her. Say your name, sis. Toria, and then it's you. Y'all keeping track of this for me?
Yes.
I'm gonna lose track.
Just give numbers.
And then it was Baba Gibson. Then no, I'm sorry. Then it was you. Then it was Baba Gibson. So raise your hand real quick so I can. Her.
Know your
Then
number.
Baba Gibson.
Know your number.
They gonna sign a number since I can't remember it. I'm running around. And then you.
It's too many.
All right, we good?
Don't forget our online people.
And we have 10 minutes left in this section of the discussion. We have 10 minutes left, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Latoria Williams, and I just really want to speak in, as far as these reports go, I understand about these reports and the things that we went through then, but majority of this stuff's still going on right now. So if we address this stuff from back then, what we're gonna do about now? We still got quality of health. We got, I see a lot of women and infant mortality. I guess that's what's really, bothering me. That's quality of life. Then we got the education system. All of this stuff still screwed up. So we can address all of this from back then, but what are we gonna do about right now? We'll be right back in this room again 40 years from now talking about the stuff we went through now. It don't make sense.
Thanks for raising that.
Thank you.
Oh, and New Detroit 1 has a whole article.
Is my, okay. Member La Sosa?
Yes.
I just wanted to comment.
Please do, Member House.
Since the reports cover really from the 1800s up to the present. So, yes, so those issues you're concerned about are also covered. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. House. Right here?
Yes, thank you so much. Brenda Goss Andrews, a couple things I want to address. I didn't get a chance to read the report. I joined the police department doing some of the era that's talked about here, late 70s, early 80s. I haven't had a chance to digest it. All I saw in there was a talk about Detroit being deadly and stress and all that. I don't know whether anything was addressed about what it meant to have black officers on the street, what it meant to have female officers on the street, and what that meant to the culture of policing. So I just wanted to kind of do that. I can do a whole master class on that, and that's not what we're going to do today. One of the things that we can do under policing, we really want to address some things going forward, is recruiting. All of us are in our individual capacities can be ambassadors for recruiting. I ran recruiting for the police department. So when we talk about the police department, what are you doing individually to help the police department? You need to get involved in the community meetings. You need to get involved with your precinct. You need to encourage our young people to join the police department. That's my ask for this. The next thing is retirees. I'm the president of the retiree, and Mr. Davis here. One of the harms for over 10,000 police officers was the bankruptcy and the fact that our medical benefits were taken,
1 minute 30.
plunging a lot of our officers into poverty, actually. So that's a harm, and I never see anything to address that particular harm on how you're going to make those over 10,000 police officers, and he's got numbers in terms of civilians, in terms of reparations for that. So those are my asks.
And those are the retired police.
Retired
And now the new white police are getting 100,000.
police officers.
Okay,
2
let me move over
minutes.
because we ran out of
Respective of that, the retirees were harmed.
Right. Okay, Bobby Gibson.
Yes, Victor Gibson here. My question, I hear everybody speaking, and that's really great. But my harm is in the education. I've always been about education. All of us here learn from something in education. That's what we need to re-look at when it comes to urban education. They have taken away all the critical curriculum that our children need to feel good about going to school. It feels good when a child can go to school and learn about self, not just reading, writing, and arithmetic. So in the harm, I think of this emergency manager and how that played out from the state, I think all that needs to be go back and be looked at. I think DPS CDs need to be made whole. I think DPS is still, $1.4 billion in the hole? So there are two school systems.
Yes.
DPS and DPS CD.
Right.
DPS still got the debt. And so we need to be made whole.
1 minute.
And our teachers need to be trained in the understanding that they have to teach from a holistic point. There's another thing besides teaching children reading, writing, and arithmetic, but how to have moral character, how to have the sportsmanship, how to love. I mean, these things need to be taught children just don't grow up loving each other. So all that curriculum needs to be re-examined. Culturally relevant education needs to be re-implemented, and that needs to be it.
All right, so keep your comments concise, y'all. We wrapping up.
Then we have 5 minutes
Okay, so
for
my name
online
is
members.
Shannon. My name is Shannon. I represent alongside with my partner here, co-chair of the Detroit Grassroots Coalition. My message is mostly for Detroiters, task force, and for the reparation advocates online who are joining us today from California, from Fulton, from New York, and all the reparations in the grassroots who are dedicated and fighting for lineage-based reparations. Just to one thing about lineage-based reparations, I know is kind of a new term, but what we're simply saying is that we want the debt that is owed to a specific aggrieved group that we be taken care of. The recent setbacks in California's reparations, I don't know if anybody's been watching the debacle there, with Government Newsman, with black faces in high places acting as controlled opposition at the very end, whether they are representing the CBC, the NAACP, or the Urban League who came out against lineage-based. They, at the last minute, stalled those bills. We had no idea that they even wanted, that is something that they wanted to do until the very last minute. So I wanted to say that we need to keep our eye on not only this report, but the people giving the report, the people making the report. One of the things you mentioned earlier, that some of the people that were involved in this report were not of Black American lineage. They were Asians. And so in any event, I know you said that we can follow up with questions about the report afterward, but I have one specific question about cash reparations, about the constitutionality of that was mentioned in the report, as well as the mayor having concerns about whether or not cash reparations can be an idea. So for the report, I would like the task force to provide detailed resources and references for the data used in the report. Are the sources for the report in the groups, in COBRA, Urban League, or any members of the Michigan CBC or NAACP? Why is there an inclusion of non-Black reparations for Hispanics? How do you justify the inclusion of other groups in a report focused on reparations for Black Americans in the city of Detroit? Why are cash reparations limited to the mayor's stance? How does the task force plan to address the community's demand for cash reparations as documented in newspapers, letters, and town halls?
2 minutes, 30.
What legal experts have you consulted regarding the constitutionality of putting cash in our pockets?
Let me pause real quick for people we got online. I'm coming to, it was you, and then you. I also want to see, we got any hands up online?
Yes, we have 10,
How many?
12 hands up online now.
All right, we'll wait. All right, y'all, concise comments, 15 seconds.
And we have 2 minutes left in this segment of the conversation.
The name is Livonia, and one of the things we were talked about, and it goes back to what you were saying in terms of poverty and low income, we need to consider within this reparations, consider our conversation, that we make sure that any of the contracts, jobs, companies, organizations, businesses are protected. Do you know, and City Council can tell you, and anybody sitting in here, you can go to a bid for a contract or get a rebate or tax write-off, and many times people that look like me and you don't get it. There needs to be, that needs to be addressed high up there, because if you don't address how to protect businesses or promote businesses, encourage businesses in the African American community, poverty will increase. Education will decrease, because there will not be money for civic engagement and sports and other things of that sort. So I'm encouraging that we look at a line item that discuss and reflect and support and encourage the sustainability of businesses in our community.
Circulating our own dollars. All right.
I go. La Sosa.
How's everybody doing? I'm Brother Cunningham.
Yes.
Transportation is like gentrification on steroids, I call it. Our DDOT is horrible. and the education system is not the best. Some of the schools don't even have air conditioning, and we give money to billionaires and millionaires, and so we're just the last at the totem pole. So for me, I give out bus tickets at the bus stops. If anybody needs a bus ticket to get home, I'm leaving shortly, just ask, I'll give you a bus ticket. And housing is a problem. Michigan Housing and Development Authority has housing packets. I got 10 of them, so we can be productive and help each other. If you want them to mail you a packet, you can call 313-456-3540, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. They'll mail it to you. Again, that's 313-456-3540. Anybody want one? Raise your hand.
Say it again, say the
So
number again,
the
please.
final comment for this section is member Dr. Chike.
Considering that we're out of time, I would like to make a motion to the body, and I move that we move public comments up to expand the conversation. So that would be an adjustment in the, am I saying this right, parliamentarian?
Support. Without objection? Nope. All right, so we've extended this segment for another 15 minutes to include public comment.
All right, let's get to the folks that are online in Detroit, for starters. Thanks for the heads up, sister. What we got, Evan?
We have Ernest Russell.
15 minutes.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Detroit Task Force. I just want to leave, for my public comments, I do want to reiterate what the community has been saying around terms around lineage. So I think that there is a need for specificity, as you see in the ethno-history report. When you're thinking about any
He hit his mic.
Did he mute himself?
No, I was muted. Can I be heard?
We can hear you, yep.
Okay. So I think what the community is trying to say around specificity is the fact that when you look at the ethno-history report, it's talking about a specific group of people in Detroit. And more specifically, we're really talking about the vestiges of slavery that have played legacy Detroiters who have been there since the 1800s, as well as descendants that come from the South that moved into the city that also felt the brunt of those impacts, as well as the development of policies that specifically harmed them. And so when we talk about reparations, we're talking about repair. And for your recommendations, we're urging that you guys propose initiatives that actually uplift that group, specifically legacy Black Detroiters or descendants of persons enslaved in the city of Detroit. When it comes to housing, police, quality of life, economic development, or employment, we're looking for the city of Detroit to come up with initiatives that seek to repair or provide compensation to this group that was harmed, that has been outlined. Now, any programs that seek to address these groups in a few, that assist to address the historic harms and come up with a plan for the future is definitely noble and it's commendable. But again, how are you going to repair the harms specifically done to these groups through economic and housing proposal programs? I would say that at the top of these programs, there's a prioritization to provide that economic relief or assistance to the specific community that comes from Detroit, whether that's housing or other economic programs around business and other wealth development opportunities.
Thank you, brother.
The last thing that,
Well said.
I'll end with that. Yep, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, well said. Okay, so we bought 15 minutes online, it's like 12 people. Let's limit the comments to 60 seconds. I don't want to cut anybody off, but we can. So be thought out before you start to speak. I know there's a lot people want to say. Try to make your comments concise. Next online.
Next, we have A-Dub. I've asked unmute.
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is Anthony William Lloyd Jr. I'm calling on behalf of myself. My lineage can be traced back to both sides of U.S. chattel slavery in America. And I'm also allowing people to know that the survey was treasonous. The fact that they asked to identify as white first and then Black/African American. And then they hear the reports mentioning African descent at least 7 to 8 times. It is treasonous on the behalf of our ancestors because the harms is documented. and the lineage is documented, and we need to have a delineation, some sort of process in this part of repair for this study, and that's all I have.
Thank you, brother, for weighing in. Next online.
Jennifer Williams.
It's treasonous. It's documented.
Good afternoon, people of Detroit. I just want to, hello?
Yeah, we can hear
Hello?
you.
Just want to iterate that we have come together, we have a collected body of intellectuals, for professionals, to just Jennifer in the middle of Southwest, mother of a murdered child. What I'm asking us all as a whole to do, let's overcome our barriers and our obstacles to keep us from getting the reparations bill passed. I would also like to
30
get
seconds.
a copy of the report. I have not been told since I've been listening. I haven't heard how I can obtain it. Let's just pull together, each one hold each other's hands. Let's heal. Let's all begin to heal and love on each other. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the love. We can feel it. Next online.
Rhonda Adams.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
Yes, hi. I do agree that we do have to have some real serious, profound stakeholder investment into our community where the essential grassroots stakeholders will gain. And we can use the actual bipartisan infrastructure bill that has been passed. It looks at a lot of ways that we can gain an incentive for, take for instance, our schools, whereas we working on one thing with property taxes that's giving them a better advantage to get some leverage on getting their homes, but we also taking away support for the schools. So in that, with the millage, that should never happen. So that money needs to be put there. It's supposed to be. And then also, as I say, use that
You're at
IRA
time,
to our
sister.
advantage for the direct pay alternatives that's available for those stakeholders.
You're at time, sister, but thank you for that. For clarity, you talked about a bipartisan bill. What bill are you talking about?
She was muted.
The Infrastructure Reduction Act with the transparency policy in place now to
Okay, so we're aware. Okay.
guidance on those investments.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarity. All right. Who's next online?
Jacob W.
Jacob? Okay, let's hear it, Jacob.
Hey guys, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Maybe just one comment to the body here. When I first came to the meetings, they were a little rough. I just want to comment and give you guys praise for the path forward and approving just the overall flow of the meeting. So just kudos to everybody who's been involved.
Thank you.
I
Thank
do
you.
just
Thank
want
you.
to add my
Give
voice to
yourselves a
the-
hand. Yeah.
I do just want to add my voice to the support of lineage-based. We've seen what's happened in California, other places. When that's taken away, things sort of unravel. It becomes sort of a government giveaway. We really want to focus on the individuals
30
who worked,
seconds.
invested, paid taxes, sweat equity into the program to make sure that they're taken care of with this process. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you.
Who's next online?
Election integrity Ruth.
Okay.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, we can hear you. Clearly-ish.
Okay, well, what we got going on in Detroit is absentee ballot voter fraud, absentee ballot fraud that occurred in Detroit elections 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2024. It can be proven and demonstrated now. Detroit has undergone a coup d'etat by the nefarious means of absentee ballot voter fraud. Now, this has been brought up many times. Now, the proof has
30
been
seconds.
given to certain factions in the United States of America, and they're all looking into it. And the numbers that they're coming up with are fraudulent absentee ballots.
You're at time, brother. You want to connect this to reparations real quick? I'll give you 15 more seconds.
15 more seconds.
Yeah, connect
The
it to
truth is the
reparations, man,
truth.
to repair.
The truth is the truth, that evidence and proof is irrefutable, ironclad, concrete, steel tooth, bear trap, proof and evidence. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Who else we
Next,
got?
have Kimlee Naylor.
Is it Kimberly?
Dr. Kimlee Naylor.
Yes, may I be heard?
Can you, yeah, will you say your name?
Dr. Kimley Naylor.
Kimberly?
Kimley, think of Kimberly without the burr, Kimley.
Thank you, Kimberly. Here,
Yeah,
go ahead.
sure. I'm looking at the report regarding housing. We know housing is critical. Housing is crucial to the stability of Black families. I saw the comment about overhauling the land bank. I think there should be designated properties in the land bank that should be for Black families in these designated areas where we know we had extreme redlining, and
30
we're seeing
seconds.
other cultures come in and take these properties from the land bank. There seems to be preferential treatment from the land bank, so I think the housing source is plentiful with the land bank, and that there should be an initiative to take those properties, not the baseline properties that are stone's throw from demolition, but some of those better quality homes that if you
Yes,
drive
ma'am.
through the city and you call about it, you never get a response on, that there needs to be more transparency on their process of keeping data, and there should
Go ahead, Kimberly. You're over time, 15 seconds, but I'll let you wrap it up.
I believe we should take certain houses and start building homes out of the land bank for our Black families.
Thank you, Dr. Kimberly.
Next, we have Jonathan.
Go ahead, Jonathan. 45 seconds comes fast, y'all, so
Okay, hello.
heads up on that.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going, committee? Hey, everybody in the room. My name is Jonathan Michael Harris. I'm born and raised here, lived in Minnesota for 15 years. Part of the grassroots that happened out there way before some Black Lives Matter. I want to say that I applied for Open Road funding. Open Road funding, they're giving reparations in Minnesota as well as California. It started in Minnesota where what we need to do is we need to partner up with
30
these
seconds.
other reparation task force that's handling our business better than us. So Nexus Community Partners, what they're doing is giving out $50,000 to, it's actually $50 million. So happy Juneteenth. Have you heard of the Open Road Fund? The Open Road Fund is a community resource awarding $50 million in grants to descendants of Atlantic slave trade in
Jonathan,
Minnesota and the
you're past
Dakotas.
time. I want to make sure we're getting your thought. Did you say open enrollment funding?
Yes, sir. I just applied for this grant, and
Well,
I didn't
give
get
us the
So
quick
what they're
breakdown
doing-
of what your
we just-
recommendation is
our
so we don't
lineage.
miss it.
Our lineage, sir. Our lineage.
Okay.
That lady there said our lineage. They're already doing that. So you have to track your lineage back to, I can track mine's. My great grandma is a merchant off the
Okay.
slave boat.
We're
So
time,
we track
brother.
our lineage.
We're time, brother.
Next, we have EKJ's iPhone.
Okay, good afternoon.
Let Jonathan come back real quick for clarity. Tell him to stay on track, though. We need to hear what he's saying. Give us the clip. Give us the name of the program.
Hello. Y'all not
Jonathan,
listening.
what's the
We
name
need
of
to
your
we need
program?
to we need to connect with these task force already. California task force has already implemented where they're going to get paid soon. Nexus Community Partners is in Minnesota. I'm on the internet right now. The California task force is is Freeman Initiative. Freeman Initiative.
Okay.
And also the other task force is Cal Matters. It is not difficult to identify our slavery. 'cause
No,
what
that's
they're
okay. We
doing-
just want the names you want us to have, brother.
It's Open Road Fund.
Open Road Fund.
Open Road
Okay.
Fund.
All right, we got you. Thanks for that
Open
contribution,
Road.
brother.
Next is EKJ iPhone.
Who was
Good
it?
afternoon.
Hi. Say your name, please.
Eleanor K. Johnson.
Hey, Eleanor. Go ahead, please.
I just wanted to say I'm a dedicated Detroiter, and one thing I've learned after living in 5 other cities is that I had an awesome upbringing, and several people have touched upon, being able to have good jobs back in the 70s, and our good communities were strong, and having Black police officers that you were proud, Black doctors and teachers. And when I go other places, people notice how I've been developed. And when I came back just 7 years ago, I am appalled at what's going on in Detroit. It's like I left the South and I came back to the South. My family goes back 200 years here. And one of the things we should be appalled at is the fact that we don't have unity here anymore.
We have 6 more people.
How many more people?
6.
We have 5 minutes left.
We got 5 minutes left. We're gonna cut people off at 30 seconds. This is gonna go quiet, okay? So quick, concise recommendations. Y'all know y'all got stories y'all want to tell. But 30 seconds. Let's go ahead with the next one.
Brooke Sinclair.
Just mute it at 30 seconds if you're not done. Go ahead, Brooke.
Hi, Brooke Sinclair, 14th generation American. I wanted to remind people in the audience and the members that last year the Supreme Court said that the descendants of the colored Union soldiers are exempt from its unfriendly laws. Per the 14th Amendment, those who are descendants of U.S. chattel slaves are now and have always been exempt from unfriendly laws, per the Supreme Court
Noted.
last.
Thank you.
Next we have Tony.
Sorry, 30 seconds, y'all. We gotta get out of time.
S22 Ultra.
She said the 13th Amendment. No, those amendments exist. She's talking about some ruling that's taking place. Madam Chairwoman?
We'll come back for the reference, but so the ask is that when there's something important for us to know, give us the reference so that we can list it. Try to skip the preambles, y'all, and then we want to get the most important things you want to share.
Are we going back to Brooke?
Not yet. Go to the next person first, please.
Tony's S22 Ultra.
I actually didn't have a question. Did I look like I raised my hand? That would be by mistake.
Okay, I'll take our time. Thank you. I just want to make sure we.
Let's go to the next person on.
That's everyone.
All right, so let's go back to Brooke real quick.
Hello?
Brooke?
Can you hear?
Yeah, will you put the reference to what you stated earlier in the chat so we can capture it?
There isn't a chat. I'm on, maybe because I'm on mobile. but
Okay, maybe just speak it for us.
the-
Just go ahead and tell us out loud. We'll write
Sure.
it down.
Students for Fair Admissions. It was the June 2023 decision and what is affectionately known as the affirmative action case.
Did we get that, y'all? Okay, thank you.
357.
SFAA or SFFA versus Harvard Complaint PDF. Is that what you're referring to, Brooke? Oh, I'm sorry. I think that's what she said.
Okay, Livonia, I think that you want to make a final comment on this side? Okay, y'all, I think we got through it. Give yourselves a hand. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much, Member Sosa, for facilitating our conversation. Thank y'all all so much for your patience and for your participation. Thank you to those of y'all who are online. We still do have a little bit of business to get through on our agenda. Really quickly, y'all, any unfinished business? Hearing none. Any new business? Hearing none. Our announcement really quickly, we do want to make sure everybody got a copy of the QR codes on the table. We do have a community survey that is open and we need all the feedback as possible when it comes to the repair for what we want to see. So for those of us who did get to participate in today's conversation, please extend that to everybody that you know. That QR code is going to be open for at least the next couple of months or weeks, I should say, as we start to accumulate our recommendations and compile this report. I also want to answer the question about where the reports and minutes can be found, because I know that does come up in our public meetings. Everything is on our City of Detroit website. I will ensure and double check with Evan, but I am like 89% sure that everything is available online for your leisure. So please go ahead, check out the website, make sure you can access those links. If you have any feedback that you can't get into it, please let somebody know. But also extend those to all of your community members, because we want as many eyes on these reports as we compile our report as possible, because we can't do this by ourselves. Was there anything else that I forgot, Evan? I think I'm good. Okay, yeah, so the report's on the website. All of our minutes are on the website, and the survey, that's that QR code on the sheet you received at sign in. Please make sure to upload or to scan that QR code and share that link with everybody. We want a lot of feedback, y'all. We are at about 500 some odd surveys. We want 1,000, we want 1,500. We want to hear from every single Black person in this city that has access to that survey. All right, body, is there anything else that I'm missing before I open the floor for adjournment? Yes.
Quality of life. Quality of life is this week, this Thursday, 5:30 to 6:30 on Zoom, and you can touch base with Evan for the Zoom link. He can email it to you, or it's on our website.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Member
The
Parker.
Housing Committee meets this Monday at 5:30. The Zoom link is there
for you to be able to participate
On the website, yes.
Yes.
on the website.
All
There's a
right.
question, yes?
It's all the same link. Mm-hmm. It's
Just
just the
different
time is
days.
different, so the meeting is different. That's it. Yes, ma'am.
In the subcommittee meetings, yes.
Madam Chairwoman,
Yes, Member Hazel.
I'd like to just thank all of the volunteers who stepped up to the plate to keep this moving forward. Levita over there on Zoom, the gentleman, Black Proud that just walked out.
Our note takers.
On notes, thank you so much. Our registration, all of our volunteers, thank you.
Thank you all so much. Really quickly, Member Chike? Oh, I'm sorry, Shannon? Yes. 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 Yeah, so we're going through a transitional period right now with staff, so we'll be catching up on all of that stuff once we figure out who's going to do what. So we're just reorganizing. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Chike?
Move that we adjourn the meeting.
A motion for adjournment? All right. Thank you all so much again for joining us this afternoon. Have a great weekend.